can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of RX Bars, Hint Water, P90X, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. Rise25 hosts in-person VIP events and masterminds for top entrepreneurs all over the country, including many events in the e-commerce industry. We hosted this past year events in Austin, Chicago, Santa Barbara, San Diego, New York, Sonoma, Las Vegas, probably more I'm forgetting, probably a city near you. If you see the value of immersing yourself with other top entrepreneurs to connect and collaborate to get your business to the next level, I know Eddie does because he goes to tons of conferences. Go to rise25.com, contact us to find out when and where our next event is going to be. And I'm very excited. Not many people who I interview are also local in Chicago. Today we have Eddie Levine, co-founder of a wholesale e-commerce and brand management company, which he started in 2012 with his business partner, Greg Gilpin. They have created a multi-million-dollar e-commerce operation in a very short period of time, and they specialize in purchasing products directly from manufacturers, distributors, and brand owners, warehouse them all under their own roof and sell on various channels. They also, like I mentioned, do brand management, which is probably everything under the sun for a brand, I imagine. So we'll talk about that. If you weren't busy enough, he has an information and consulting arm of his e-commerce business, which is, you can find it at wholesaleBreakthrough.com, where he teaches others how to tap into the business opportunity. And we'll talk about that and about how there's no set way to do this type of business and how he structured that piece. And in his limited free time, he's also director of operations for the nonprofit Last for the Troops, which helps raise funds to help increase awareness of traumatic brain injuries and PTSD. He's also going to be traveling to DC because he does judging of DECA Nationals, which is an entrepreneurship competition, right?
Youth business organization, so high school students.
So, Eddie, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So many questions, so little time here. First of all, the transition. I want to talk about the transition from, and you probably got some, I've heard people who go through CDW get amazing training.
Yep.
And the transition from CDW to your own business. Because I know from my research, you started this business in 2012 out of your garage with $5,000 of credit card debt. So I want to hear some of the scary times early on. Now it maybe seems like you're in office, you're doing well. Back then, it may not have been so obvious.
Yeah, so I mean, if I had the problems that I had back then today, I'd be thrilled. Growing pains, but that's fine. So I came from a large IT company, CDW, before I started this business. And I tell everybody, look, the company that I worked for there, the job I had there, it was a great company. It was a great job that I had. I mean, the people that I was around, great people. I didn't leave with any hesitations whatsoever or bad taste in my mouth. But here's the thing. The business that I have today is not my first business. This is actually my fourth or fifth business, depending on which ones you want to count. But I was a business owner, I like to say, since I was maybe 8, 9, 10 years old, because I did things like setting up my own lemonade stand at the end of my driveway, figuring out how I could target people that were walking in the neighborhood instead of driving, increase my sales, right? I did selling wrapping paper and chocolates from my elementary school when I was a lot younger, and we did that over the holiday season. I was doing around $2,000 or $3,000 over the course of a month when I was 10 years old.
That's pretty good.
And then I was doing eBay when I was much younger. What
were you selling on eBay?
So that was a consignment-based business. So that was, instead of buying product and selling it like I do today, that was going to people in the neighborhood who were looking to get rid of stuff that they had that they no longer wanted, and I would obviously take a commission. But I did that a little bit differently, because the people that I saw that doing that business, they would either set up a shop and have people come to them by means of advertising, or they would advertise to such a large group of people in the audience or in the area. The way I did it was a little bit more special. I targeted people who were either moving and had their house listed for sale. B, were having a garage sale because I knew that they would have things they were looking to move. So my overall rate of return was tremendously increased.
And it's a no-brainer offer.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's consignment.
Exactly. They have stuff they want to get rid of. I'm giving them an offer, and it works out.
So, talk about what's your no-brainer offer to brands? Because I'm sure you're savvy enough as a 10-year-old to have, listen, no cost to you. I sell it, then we both make money.
Yep.
Not many 10-year-olds are thinking of that and translate to today.
Yeah. So, fast forward to what we do today. It's put it this way: brands are, for the last number of decades, right? They've been used to selling products through brick and mortar retail channels. That's how it's evolved for years.
How are they? I was walking around a mall last week, and I was wondering, how are some of these places in business? Because the competition has got to be so high, and the rent has got to be so high.
You got to find a speaker that speaks on retail. But here's the thing. Brands have seen, the smart ones have seen that the way of doing commerce today is online, whether it be through your own website or Amazon or what have you. There's multiple ways of doing it, right? But too many brands are stuck in how they get that done. It's not as easy as just putting products online and selling it. There's a piece of making sure your brand is represented well, that it's not being sold by people who shouldn't be selling it. It's not being advertised by people who are not advertising it in the proper way, and you are neck and neck and exceeding your competition for similar products, because all those things kind of go in one, and unless you're doing all those together and really showcasing your brand as much as possible and watching the things that could negatively impact you, you could have a real problem as you go to try to expand your brand presence.
So objections.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably, you talk a lot about approaching it from their point of view.
Yep.
So what's their point of view? Because like you were saying, they may think, oh, I just slap it up on Amazon or something and I'll start selling. Or maybe they don't think that. I don't know.
Well, the brand, when I talk about looking at it from the brand's perspective, I mean putting yourself in their shoes, right? So this is what I do anytime in business. When you approach somebody, you obviously have a pitch, right, that you want to lead with or that you're trying to make work to benefit you. But you got to remove that word "you" from the equation, right? So instead of approaching them with my pitch, I go up to a brand owner, and normally I meet them at trade shows. That's my go-to approach, because I like that face-to-face interaction. But I'm going to them, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, they're at the show all day long. They're having people approach them, saying, "Hey, can I sell your product? Hey, can I sell it on Amazon? Hey, can I can resell your product? Whatever." It gets very old, right? And what happens there is, if you're just one of those people, I call them just another reseller. The problem is, what happens? There's nothing to separate yourself apart from anybody else, right? And do you have money to spend and buy product? Yeah, but what happens when the next person comes to us a bigger bankroll, right? There's nothing tying you to that vendor. So it's that one-on-one approach. It's that, hey, this guy listened to me. This guy really gets what my pain points are, or what I've struggled with, or what my problems have been in the past. This guy's willing to hear me out. He's actually hitting on the points that actually impact me as a business owner. So I find that when I approach someone in that sense, and I talk to them, specifically geared towards their own pain points, which obviously each conversation is different, yeah, I have a lot more success. It's
smart because everyone has different pain points, right? What's a pain point that surprised you when you actually listened? What's your pain point? And you would have never thought of it, because often people, I feel, we don't talk to our customers enough. Mm-hmm. What's one that surprised you that you're like, I would have never in a million years thought that was a pain point for this manufacturer? Honestly,
in the onset, until I realized how difficult it is, it's the warehousing and logistics part in terms of e-commerce. If you ask a normal seller who's selling on Amazon or any other platform, most of them will tell you, hey, I can learn how to order products, store products, ship product into the warehouse when I need to, and it's not too difficult, right? Most of these vendors, in terms of dealing with an online platform or learning the process or trying to figure out, how they go about storing their products or getting enough ordered or making sure they're covered for a busy season like Q4, December, it's a constant struggle. there's a lot of times when I've talked to vendors where, they come to me and they have what they think is a good game plan for getting through, let's just say, as an example, peak season. And I'll have to literally rip apart that plan and explain to them that there are things that they're not looking at that are going to negatively impact and make their plan impossible. For example, they say, hey, I'm going to send in a lot of stock, in the beginning of December, and that's what I'm going to sell for the holiday season. Well, I'll have to take a step back and tell them, actually, you're going to want to send that in November, because if you start sending stock into Amazon on December 1st for the holiday season, you're going to be lucky if it gets there by Christmas, just because of the receiving delays. So then that evolves into a whole bunch of more potential problems for them, or things they have to look into, because, well, now I'm shipping a bunch of stuff even earlier. That changes my workflow, that changes my warehouse operations, that changes what I need to order from China, way back earlier in the year. So it's kind of like a domino effect, if you will.
Eddie, I would never think that logistics would be easy, by the way. It sounds like a nightmare to me, actually. But at what point did you decide you have a large facility where you can handle this?
My joke is that if I didn't have this business, I would be working in some kind of logistics-based job, because that's like my second language.
Really?
Speak it really well. I can look at a product and know how much space it takes up without even doing much math. It just comes natural to me, right? So it takes a special skill to know that. It's not for everybody. But yeah, this warehouse we have now, we have now 2 locations. This is just after 5 years of being when we started in our garage, but growing into a new location is always exciting, because you're upping your game.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, but it comes with pain points, right? When I went from a garage, then into a self-storage facility where we operated out of for a year and a half or so, then into our first office, which was logistically impossible to maneuver around, because it was half office, half warehouse, and the warehouse was only 12 feet high, and there was no good way to store products that were coming in on pallets, so it was just a mess, right? And then we moved to our first location, which was much better, right? Because it was a much bigger facility, and the ceilings were higher, and we could put in racking and get a forklift and all that. But I wasn't experienced with any of that. I didn't know how to design a warehouse space. I'd never done that before, so it was kind of learning as you go. And that's honestly what I've done my entire life. I'm not a book smarts person. I don't like sitting in a classroom or taking an educational course or something and trying to learn that way. I like to try and do things that I think are the right way. And if they're not, then I fail and I try again and I learn from them. But that's honestly how I built this business. And it takes a certain person to be willing to take that kind of risk. It's not for everybody, but that's why not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. It's what it is.
It is a risk, and obviously you weighed the advantages and disadvantages. What made you think, well, it's way more beneficial to have my own space as opposed to maybe hiring a warehouse to do it there, and then you kind of just have someone else manage it and you do what you do best, going to conferences and just probably making those personal relationships?
Yeah, so when we first started this e-commerce business, our model was buy very, very deep and very narrow. So we were buying, there was common times when we'd have 30 SKUs. That's it. And this is when our business was growing pretty rapidly. But we were buying, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 of an item at one time for a significant discount. So we had a pricing advantage, and these were items that were, top ranked SKUs across the categories we sold in, and it was, they were constantly flowing, right? In more recent times, we've expanded that SKU selection, so we've gone, wider in terms of product selection and not as deep. Obviously, we'll do our initial model still if the opportunity presents itself, but we just kind of added in some extra opportunity as well. But really, based on those particular models and setups and the logistics and the space that's required, you do a cost analysis and you figure out, hey, for example, this space right here, the one office that we have my rent is around $4,400 a month. Well, how much is it going to cost me to store 30, 40 truckloads plus the prep work that's going to be in here on a monthly basis? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So talk about staffing for a second. Everything that's I talked about in the front of the introduction, you sound like every minute is accounted for in your day. What does your day look like, and then who do you surround yourself with to make all this happen?
Oh, God, if I knew what my schedule was like, even on the morning I wake up, what it's going to be for that day, I would be a happy man. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I try to plan my day as much as possible. I live in my calendar that is attached to my email, so I can try to coordinate my schedule and know where I'm going and know what meetings I have, like talking to you. But it's just, things happen and things have to get moved around.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about today. You don't have to talk about the details, but like, I think people talk about the luxury of this type of business. They don't talk about some of the challenges like today. So I don't know if you want to just mention some of the things that crop up, which is a reality of this type of business.
Totally. So here's the thing. When I was working at my last corporate job, I was working, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, right? That was the go-to thing at like most corporate jobs. This job, I'm working, maybe not sitting in my office and at my desk, but I'm working on something on my phone, at my desktop at home, or something on my mind, like literally 24/7. It just doesn't stop, because that's the life of a business owner, right? Yes, you can delegate. Yes, you can outsource. I'm not saying we don't do that. We do that, of course. But as a business owner, your business is your money, and it's always on top of your mind. So like today, I went into the office and last night I had done some work at home, and I had about 6-7 things on my to-do list that I wanted to get done before the end of the day. It's now 1:00, and I have not even started that, because this morning I get a call from my freight forwarder that one of my containers from China was selected for customs inspection. So, I'm finding
Throw
out
everything else out the window.
Right. So, I mean, I'm finding out now that this 20-foot container containing, tons of product is flagged for customs inspection. I've got to get all these certificates and compliance reports together and all this stuff sent over. And by the way, they want it like yesterday. So, it's difficult, because now I got to go to the brand owner and explain to them what's going on with their products. Potentially, we have an issue with ingredients or testing or whatever. We don't know yet. But, there goes my morning, right? So now everything that I was supposed to do this morning and throughout the day has to wait. And now it's got to get kind of jigsaw puzzled into my remaining open spaces, whether it be tonight or tomorrow, whenever. But you've got to be willing to adapt as a business owner, and you've got to be willing to work under pressure, because if you are not willing to do those two things, honestly, you're setting yourself up for failure right from the start, because it will happen.
And I know that you Eddie, you talk about automation is really important, and you automate as much as possible. Can you talk about a little bit about what automation you put in place, whether it's a software or a service, and then supporting staff? Like, how many people do you need to run all these components? Because this seems like a lot of moving parts.
It is a lot of moving parts, but when you look at automation, it's really actually kind of simple. So I highly suggest anyone who's a business owner use some kind of calendar app to keep track of your time, or some kind of task management tool, like Asana, for example, is another one. It's a software program.
I love Asana.
Yeah. So, and I look at it this way: look, anything that you're doing on a repetitive basis, like review your week every week and see what you're doing on a repetitive basis. If you're repeating it, it's the same general task, the same type of formula. That can be automated. You can create for example, you can make a group. You can use a Google Chrome extension like Loom, right, and create a video guide to somebody on how to do this task, whether it be paying bills or reaching out to a vendor or sending an email or following up on this, whatever it is. But if it's something that you can just teach somebody and you're doing all the time and you're repeating yourself on, outsource that, move it over. The stuff that I want to be working on as a business owner is stuff that didn't happen to me last week or didn't happen to me last month, something that's new that I've got to say, how do I figure this out? How do I solve this problem? Or how do I, go into a space that I'm not yet in and expand my business, right? Those things that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that's what you want to work on. And I preach this when I speak. You want to work, if you're working in your business, that's not good. You want to work on it. There's a big difference.
So what other software do you use to manage the business? You said Asana you use. What else? What do you use on a daily basis?
So I live out of Outlook, for example. My email, my calendar that's what I love. If I don't have that, it's like everything comes to a standstill because everything's stored there. Asana, my organization, a lot of my files are shared between people that are involved in my organization. We use like Dropbox, Skype for video, TeamViewer for screen share. We have VAs who help us with our business aspects, and we obviously use those tools to communicate with them. But I'm all for any product that allows us to be more efficient. And I think a common misconception is, I don't have the time to learn a new program or procedure, and I'm going to do it my way. But honestly, you've got to challenge yourself to expand your horizons and listen to other people or try a different program that might save you a lot of time, because chances are it's worth it.
So, and I know you talk about this a lot too. When you started out, you didn't start out in wholesale.
No, it.
So what did you do to start out, and why?
Yeah, so when we started the business, we did a mix. We did a mix of retail arbitrage, and we did a mix of closeout/liquidation type goods, because, in 2012, that was just how a lot of people got started in the business. And even today, it's still true. But it was much easier as a business owner who was just operating out of the garage and didn't have that value proposition and that history of a business and, success stories that we can share with vendors today built up yet. We could go to a store and we could buy whatever was available at a good price and resell it for more money. Or we could just buy those lots of, discounted goods on the internet. And that's honestly how I did my first purchase. I tell this story a lot. I mean, I remember the day that I was sitting at my desk in my last job when I had my phone literally just facing me on the desk like this, and I'm working away, and I get a text message from Capital One. We've now charged you $5,000 for this sealed bid that you placed on this auction, which I never thought I was going to win. So I get this text message, and I'm like, okay, never mind the fact that I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to pay that off, because I'm an entry level salesperson. $5,000 in a month is not exactly easy to come by. So I don't know how I'm going to pay that off, but my logistics hat comes on, right? And I'm trying to think, well, where am I going to put those 7 pallets of merchandise? How am I going to sort that? How am I going to sell it fast enough? All of these things are running through my head. Mind you, I have absolutely no interest in what I'm doing at my actual job at this point, because I'm so entrenched in what am I going to do here, right? But it goes back to, it really goes back to being a risk taker, right? I didn't know how I was going to do that, but it's that mentality of say yes and figure it out later, right? I do that a lot.
What was in that? What was in that initial order?
It was a mixture of electronics, so it was a bunch of like keyboards, satellite receivers, cell phone cases, covers, some miscellaneous stuff. I mean, we did profit on it.
How did you get rid of all of it?
We sold on Amazon.
Yeah.
We had an Amazon account by then, so obviously, selling those type of goods in 2012 is a lot easier than it is in 2018, because the platform has changed quite a bit. I think the whole lot was actually sold through Amazon. We didn't use a different channel for any of that, actually. Come to think of it.
So why wholesale now? So you transitioned to wholesale.
Yep.
So, why? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the retail arbitrage part of our business, we had built that into a 7-figure business by the time we were done with that in 2014. And my business partner and I had a discussion, and we said, look, if we want to scale this into a multi-million-dollar business and continue to grow year after year and have those new opportunities and really take it to the next level, can we do that with this model? And the answer we got was no, we can't. It's just not feasible with the two of us working the way we are. We were already, as it was, working throughout the night sometimes and over the weekends. We were maxed out, right? So what we determined that the wholesale model offered us was the ability to source products directly from manufacturers and distributors. So we can source a lot more product in a lot less time. Plus, we then had the relationship with those suppliers, which kind of correlates to where Amazon was going, because they wanted that platform cleaned up. They wanted those people to have the solid paper trail of their inventory, and with the whole being authorized to sell in categories and brands, and now with brand registry, it's kind of taken a different turn. So we feel being operating this model today, when we have those tight, close-knit relationships, gives us a better security, if you will, in our business, because when any potential problems come up, we know where to go, and we can usually combat the problem pretty quickly. Is it common that if they're working with you, they will stop selling to other smaller people to sell? Yes. Like, will they work exclusively with you? Yes. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's common that when we do approach somebody and we do pitch them pretty hard with what our capabilities are and what some of the value-added features we can bring to the table are, yes, they usually do work with us on a more exclusive relationship. And I imagine is that more unique too, that not all the sellers, not many of them have their own like logistics and facility like you do. Yeah, not all of them do, but you have to remember that a lot of sellers, they'll go up to a manufacturer or a vendor and they'll ask for the exclusive right out of the gate. Hey, let me be your exclusive seller and let me just sell to me directly. But I go back to what I said earlier. With that pitch, your pitch is only about you, and the brand might not care. The brand most likely doesn't care. So I never lead with, hey, give me an exclusive or let me be your only authorized seller. I lead with what are you looking for and what value adds do I know based on my business that I can bring to the table to fill in those holes that you're talking about. Because I feel that if I can fill in those holes for the vendor and if I can really solve their problems, what I'm looking for in terms of exclusivity or really ramping up that sales velocity or really making money on that brand is going to come naturally because they're going to trust you and they're going to see the value you bring to the table. So that's kind of the route I take.
Yeah. And obviously it seems like you're very focused on wholesale.
Yep.
Talk about your thoughts on private labels.
So I feel in today's Amazon environment in 2018 that there are two great models for Amazon, and it's either wholesale, doing it the right way, meaning you have the relationships with your manufacturers and distributors. You're not just buying product and selling it without them knowing where you're selling it. That's a key part of that, right? So either have that in place and you have those relationships, or you are doing private label where you are, sourcing your own products from overseas and you're manufacturing some, type of device or some type of product and you're then selling that under your own brand. I feel both of those are good models for Amazon. However, I feel both of them do come with their unique challenges. Obviously, wholesale is challenging because you have to basically, even though you're the customer, you're the salesperson until you're in with the vendor, right? They have to trust you. So that's a challenge, right? The products that you sell are not your own. So, the fate of those products is never really certain, right? But, unlike private label, I think the concern with private label is you've got to research a product. You've got to find a product that, that
you have to make a name for yourself and you got to prove it out.
You got to brand it. You got to figure out if it's going to sell well. You got to promote it. You've got to really compete. So there's pluses and minuses to both. I feel that, again, though, from a platform perspective, I think both of them can be very lucrative.
So, you're a very experienced seller in general. What have you thought about going the private label route before?
Yeah, so, both Greg and I are not opposed to that at all. I think this year, it's one of our objectives to try to get into that a little bit more.
And you also have your finger on the pulse of a lot of stuff that is high volume.
Yeah, but here's the thing. When you're in wholesale, there's a lot of things you can do in wholesale that overlap with private label. People don't realize. When you find a wholesale product and let's just say it's no longer available, but it's been selling well on Amazon, well, you can make a similar product. And if it's not available anymore, take over that market, right? If you find a product on Amazon that sells really well, but the reviews aren't very good, how do you make it better, right? If you're working with a brand and let's just say they're selling a black widget, right? And that sells really, really well. Well, what if you go to them and say, hey, make a blue, red, and white one, right? It's still the same product, but now you potentially could have that exclusivity, and you can kind of piggyback off of your existing history with that product. So, there's a lot of overlap between the two that I don't think people really take advantage of, and they could be.
Yeah, so you can make modifications to products and then ask for exclusivity, which is they're not even making it anyways, and obviously they ask you to put in a minimum order.
Yeah, but you have to understand the majority of the time that manufacturers and vendors don't want to give you exclusivity is because you're not the only outlet they're selling to for Amazon. They're selling to retailers, they're selling to brick and mortar stores. So they have to protect that and be cautious of that as well. But if you're bringing to them an opportunity for a new product and it's not currently in the marketplace and you're giving them this opportunity saying, hey, I think I can sell this product or I think we can do really well with this, but it's not currently in any of their other distribution areas, well, their risk is a lot lower if they give you that as an exclusive and you can run with it. So again, it's a win-win on both sides, but you got to be the one to think about those things.
Totally. And so you sell on different channels. So obviously we talk about Amazon's a behemoth in this space, right? But what other channels do you sell on?
So Amazon, Jet, Walmart, Groupon, Rakuten, Sears, Price Falls, U.S. government, B2B. Too many to name, honestly. But again, with the channels, we do things a little bit differently, right? So, for example, if we have a vendor who wants to go into brick and mortar, right? They want to sell their product to a major retailer, right? But that major retailer wants to only buy product domestically. They only want to buy it from the States. Well, that brand owner, we have a brand owner like this where they only sell product out of their warehouse in China, FOB, full container. Well, for me, I see it as an opportunity because I can buy FOB full container from that vendor. I can bring it into my location as a distributor, right? So that's even less than wholesale pricing. And then I can wholesale it out to that major retailer. So for literally moving product from one warehouse to another, B2B, I can make, 30, 40 points on the deal. So it's worth it for me. I've got, if they give me a forecast and they're, cutting me POs, what's the risk? Right. So I do things a little bit more.
It's just because they want to deal with someone in the U.S. Is that the main pain point?
Yeah, I mean, there's headaches. Like there's headaches with buying from overseas.
Just happened today.
I've got that container that's being inspected, and who knows how long it's going to take for that to get released. I mean, it's a pain point. But this vendor happens to know, hey, if I buy from the States, I can get it in 3 or 4 days and be done with it, right? And they'll pay a premium for it. But who's going to be the person that allows that to happen in the middle? Because the vendor doesn't want to do that, the buyer doesn't want to do that. So there's an opportunity in the middle for someone like me to compete.
Yeah. And I want to talk about, because I know you breezed over it, the U.S. government, right? That's a unique thing that not many people are doing. But talk about headaches from China for a second. Just what are some things that you would never have known if you weren't in this business? Like you said, they just decided to inspect a container. What else are big holdups that people should be weary of?
Well, I'll give you the most obvious, which a lot of people don't know when they first go into sourcing overseas, is they don't operate in February. Chinese New Year, yeah, they're shut down. So you don't get your order in by the end of January, you're waiting until March. And honestly, if you don't know about that, and that's around the time of your order, it's a huge problem, right? Because you're waiting a month. Then it's just I think it's mostly the pure logistics of it. You're trying to fill a container. When you get stuff on a truck in the U.S., it's mostly going to come to you on pallets, whereas when you're buying overseas, it's going to come floor loaded. So all those cases are just stacked in a container, and you're manually unloading them one by one because they're not on skids. In China, they don't believe in that because it's a waste of space. That 6 inches all the way across the floor of the container, that's a lot of space. That's something you got to think about too. When you can't unload that container like you would a truck very easily because it's one by one, right? Obviously shipping times to get here is significant. It's 4 to 6 weeks, depending where exactly in the country you are. Payments, instead of getting net terms and instead of getting products delivered to your warehouse and you getting, net 30, net 60 to pay it. So you being able to sell a lot of inventory right away. Not in China. I mean, you're paying 30% when you place the order. You're paying usually the other 70% when it's ready to leave the port. And again, you still have 4 to 6 weeks for it to get here. So your cash flow
is fronting a lot of cash.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts with overseas importing.
So these are probably all, I'm assuming, big mistakes people make, or people meaning you've made them and other people have made them in wholesale&breakthrough.com. And we'll talk about that too, because you decided on an interesting approach to Wholesale Breakthrough, and it's not like your typical step-by-step, and we'll talk about why, but I have to talk about the U.S. government because you just threw that in there. Yep. And it's like, yeah, we have the U.S. government.
So basically, here's what you need to, the biggest thing you need to know about the U.S. government sales or sales to the U.S. government, whether it be military, regional, Department of Defense, whatever it is. Anything government related falls under this umbrella. If you are I'll give you all three. If you are a women-owned minority small business and you are not dealing with the government, you're missing out a lot, because there's contracts in the government in almost any area of the government that are literally designated for you. Before anyone else can bid on them, they're there for you, waiting for you to bid on them and say, hey, I can supply you with whatever the widget is they're looking for. And it can be something so easy. We've had offers where they're just looking for a case of first aid kits, which you can source from almost anybody. And these first aid kits, they're willing to, they'll give you the price that they've paid before. So you almost they're willing to pay, right? So they say, oh, we paid $35 for these first aid kits. Well, I go to look them up online. Yeah. I can buy them for $12. I've got no fees to do it. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of language you got to read through, which is majority what turns people off. But the potential there is just insane.
I don't know, my mind goes, they call it retail arbitrage. I wouldn't name a site government arbitrage because that would sound bad, but maybe it's women arbitrage with the government or something.
I mean,
That's your next course.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm all about equality in the marketplace, and this is why I bring up that topic, because there's, especially like take speaking, right? There's a lot of talk right now about we need more women speakers in the marketplace, and I'm all for that, right? But here's an opportunity. Here's a business opportunity that is literally a gold mine for that group of people. It's a gold mine, but there's so many people that I know that are in that group that aren't taking advantage of it because they don't know about it, or they've been turned off by it somehow, whatever. But if you are in any of those three categories that I mentioned, women-owned, minority, or you're a small business, which is pretty much everybody here. Small business, I think it's under 5 or 10 million a year. It's pretty big still. You're a small business, so chances are you at least qualify for one, if not two or three, and you can really do some.
And if you're a woman minority small business, then you have all three.
It's trifecta. It literally is trifecta.
Golden.
Yep.
Research. So, I mean, I guess, Eddie, you have so much that you're executing on now. What would you give away now that you can't execute on, but you're like, this is a huge opportunity. We don't have the, right now we're just busy with too much. What should people go after it? I want to talk about it kind of in the frame of your research for new products, because you're probably swamped with the products you have, but I just know you a little bit, where you're probably always looking for the next thing. So how do you research right now? I know you go to a lot of trade shows, and then what's something you're like, I know that this is a huge opportunity, but there's no way we can execute it on all the other opportunities that we have.
So let me answer this question by kind of expanding on that trade show part, because I think it's fit, right? Yeah. I go to trade shows. The type of vendors that I'm looking for are the established brands, the larger brands, the ones who really have a good presence that I can take and pick up, and within a relatively short amount of time, I can really take them to the next level, right? It's harder to do that with the brands that are smaller, that are unknown, that they're still trying to build their presence. However, those brands are the ones that, more likely than not, are the ones willing to talk to the sellers, right? I don't have the time to be talking to those smaller brands because it's not what I've built this business to today. I'm working with the larger ones. So there's a lot of people that I travel with that go to the same trade shows as I do. It just happens, right? And I see them there. And even with all the work that I do and the work that other sellers of my size that do at the trade shows, there is still so much untapped potential with the brands that are literally there with their CEO or their president as the only person running their booth. They got a small, 5x5, 5x10 booth, whatever, maybe 5-10 products, and it's literally untouched opportunity, and I see it every single time. So people will say, oh well, I don't want to go to a trade show because there's so many people there who have more experience than me, or that it can offer more than I can. It's not true. All it takes, honestly, over and above what you can offer as a business, it's more about your relationship and how you can work with somebody.
Yeah. What are some of the trade shows that you recommend? You said ASD is one.
So ASD is a closeout liquidation for the most part. It's heavy in that space. There are areas where it's not, where you're dealing with manufacturers and brands, but it's not. I don't like to say it's a traditional type show where the entire show is manufacturers and brands, where you won't find basically closeouts at a traditional type show. So more traditional shows outside of ASD depends on your category, but you can look at like the baby show, you can look at hardware show, you can look at toy fair, you can look at there's tons, right? It just depends on the category that you're in.
Yep.
But you got to remember that the traditional type shows are the ones that you're going to be talking to the manufacturers and brand owners, and their guard is up, right? Because they've got brands to protect. Whereas if you're working with closeout liquidation, well, it doesn't really matter as much because it's not their stuff, right? So when you're working with the brand owners there specifically, understand that they're going to vet you. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you more about you, and they're going to investigate who you are. They're going to look you up online. They're going to look that stuff up because they want to know that you are indeed who you say you are. You're asking them to trust you with a brand that they may have, years or decades of experience trying to build. And if they can't trust you, they're not going to give you the opportunity because that's too much risk to take over someone who just claims they can do, X, Y, and Z.
I'm sure in your career you've had home runs, doubles, singles. What's been the worst product choice that you made? That you're still handing out for holidays to your family.
You know what? Luckily, I don't have anything that's I'm still handing out from inception. Thank God. But I'll go back to when I first started. So when I first started Amazon, I didn't really investigate what this whole rank thing meant. And I thought, oh, well, if it's on Amazon, it must sell, right? Everyone uses Amazon. Cool. So I bought around 300 of these Lexmark inkjet printers that were probably from, I don't know, early 2000s. I thought it was a great deal because I paid $25 a piece for them, which was, come to realize, it was highway robbery for these things because they retail for like $40. But they were on Amazon because no one was selling them. The price was inflated, right? For like $125. Well, so we got them all in, 300 of them. We sent in a couple pallets to Amazon, and lo and behold, they start selling, 1, 2, 3 a week, right? Well, when the customer got it and they realized what a piece of junk it was, they returned it for $125, and we never ended up selling them. We all got them as returns, right? So long story short, that inventory ended up being liquidated back out, and we lost a lot of money on that.
It seemed like a good deal at the time.
Yeah, not so much
anymore. Categories you stay away from?
Yeah, good question. So clothing, mainly because the rate of returns and my inexperience with clothing, I'm not comfortable with, so I stay away from that one. I know people that do really well in it though, so it's a double-edged sword. Jewelry, Amazon is really picky about that, especially the fine jewelry category. It's next to impossible to get in that category in the first place.
Why are they so picky?
The coloring, the weights, the sizes. If you're within like a gram off, you can lose your account. You can be flagged.
Wow.
It's just not worth the headache.
So what do people who are selling jewelry, is there a workaround that they sell in, if not in jewelry, or no?
I honestly don't know. I mean,
it's like kind of like going to U of I. If you want to get into engineering, you go into agriculture major first and then transfer. Yeah. So what's the workaround?
I don't know. I mean,
there is no one.
Honestly, I don't know too many people that are really hitting it out of the park with jewelry. The people that I know tend to stay away from that category. I just, it's a risky category. The other categories that I stay away from are like a lot of your topical ingestible type stuff. Just because with product recalls and certain ingredients that end up being the product that you would never have known are in the product, that are technically against Amazon's terms of service or any platform's terms of service, or just liability in general with somebody who says that it harmed them. It's risky to me. I like to stay with the stuff that's easier, toys, electronics, housewares, lawn and garden, pet baby, those pet baby like toys, things like that. Those are my more comfortable categories.
So back to Wholesale Breakthrough, and when we talked before, you said there's no set true way to do this business, and you modeled Wholesale Breakthrough because of that. So What do you mean by that, and how did you structure Wholesale Breakthrough from the information piece?
Yeah, so Wholesale Breakthrough is the consulting arm of our operation, right? It's where people can come to, they join our Facebook group, or they go on our website, wholesaleBreakthrough.com, and they learn more about us and the business that we've built, right? And here's what I thought. I've seen over the last, especially 2-3 years, when I've participated on panels or as a speaker, a lot of people ask me for advice on this business or to teach them or coach them and help them with what they're doing, right? And so I looked into it, and I kind of took a backseat on that for a long time. I thought about it, and there are
because you are front and center, and you are, speaking a lot
on the speaking side, but not on the. I haven't been on the course/consulting side purposely. But
Why?
what I realized is that there's no one right way to do this business. So rather than sell you a course for $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is, and say, here's my go-to proven way of doing this business, which, try it and hopefully you succeed. I said, hey, let me just offer myself out as a resource to somebody who's trying to build a business as a expert. Both Greg and myself are resources. And that's where we created Own Your Breakthrough, which is hashtag Own Your Breakthrough. It's the premier e-commerce community that we've developed under Wholesale Breakthrough. So it's a low monthly fee, $70 a month. You have access to myself and Greg as your dedicated resources for any questions related to either wholesale, e-commerce, Amazon, multi-channel, whatever. And we'll answer anything you have. in addition to that, we have made partnerships with a lot of the service providers in the industry to give you discounts on the things that you either already use or would want to use in your business. So it almost pays for itself. So what we see it is, hey, we make our money obviously on the subscription. We're giving you a benefit by giving you our knowledge and also the partner offers. It's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah.
It's not costing an arm and a leg either.
Yeah. How did you decide on that pricing? Because it seems like if someone's doing wholesale, it's almost like a no-brainer. Yep. I mean, subtract all the benefits. Like I'm looking at it right now. There's an offer, like if someone has a free suspension prevention, assessment, which is valuable of eGrowth Partners, is a 10% off tax jar, there's a 10% off inventory lab. There's free shipping options on Uline. There's freight joy legit. There's merchant words, all this stuff. So minus all of that, your time's valuable. You're super busy. How do you decide on that? Because it's someone doing wholesale. They could ask you one question, and it could be worth like 10 years of this.
And you know what? I hope they do. Honestly, because that way I know they've succeeded, and I've actually done my part to help another business owner succeed. It's more about giving back to the community and helping somebody than just making money for me. I've always been that way.
Who's a good fit for this? Like at what level?
I would say anyone from your entry level to your intermediate to looking to expand to try to get onto different platforms or really try to build a relationship with a brand manufacturer, trying to get more exclusives. Really anyone. I've had people who approach me who have been in the wholesale business for 2-3 years and have done $7 million. Who, for whatever reason, they're looking for help in a certain area and they know we can help them and they come to us, right? But before Own Your Breakthrough, one thing I was offering was hourly consulting, and we would talk for an hour just like this, and we'd answer the questions. But that was fine. But a lot of times, someone wouldn't need to take up the entire hour, and they wouldn't have that much to ask about, right? So I said, hey, if I can give this community, make this community available for relatively inexpensive price, it's inexpensive because I've not developed a course, a specific formula of that I'm going to teach you, something that you're going to buy and retain and watch over and over again, right? This is only going to be successful if you're willing to ask the questions, come to us for help, tell us about your business, get the feedback that you need to grow. Because if you're just going to be in the community, sign up for it and just watch, you can do that, but I don't feel that you use it to your best potential. The more you ask, the better you're going to get value-wise out of the program.
Yeah, totally. Eddie, first of all, thank you so much. I have 2 last questions, but I really appreciate your time, and everyone should check out wholesaleBreakthrough.com. Check out what he has going on, and he speaks all over the country. I can't even keep track of your schedule. I don't know how you do. So if you are going to a conference, e-commerce, otherwise, look out for him and say hello and thank him for the information, because he does put out a lot of really great information online. 2 questions I always ask is, one, since it's Inspired Insider, what's been a low moment in the business? And then 2, what's been a really proud milestone that you were able to accomplish?
Oh, geez.
A low moment, you can't count this morning. This morning does not count.
No, okay, I'll give you a low moment. So I'll preface this by saying that your low moments in your business, they're going to happen much more often than you think. There are, if not every day, at least during the week, some point that I think myself, I'm so done with this. I'm out. This is just not is all possible. But you know what? It's part of business. So low moment I can specifically think of is when we were trying to expand from our last warehouse, and we had found a location that we thought was going to be great. I saw it like 4 or 5 times. We had it all mapped out. Did a ton of work for it. Figured out where everything was going to go. Figure out our cost analysis, everything. We go to sign on their contract and get the paperwork going. It was leased to somebody else. So now I'm in a position where my lease on my current space is expiring. I don't want to renew it because it's not sufficient for us. And now I have to start all over again while I'm trying to build my business and trying to find a different space, which I didn't even know if it was available to me. So you
have to scramble big time with that.
Scramble, and it's defeating because you want to grow, but these things get in the way, and then you feel like you're restrained. You can't go forward, right? So that was definitely a low moment, because it took another 3, 4, 5 months for me to find this place that I have now, and do all the work involved to build it out and to set it up how I see fit, and figure out what that was going to cost me. But it really slowed me down in the summer of 2015, I think it was, when we were looking to move, because that's like all I was focusing on day in and day out during the summer months, and it was just really a drag. So that was one of them. That's a little.
It's painful. I've been through something similar. It's a painful experience. What about proud moment, milestone that you hit that you were especially proud of?
Honestly, I go back to myself as being an entrepreneur who likes to give back, right? When I was working my corporate job, I told myself, hey, I want to work for myself, but I don't want to do it unless I can give back to others and help others along the way. So the fact that I can look back today and I can say, hey, I'm working for myself, I have my own business, I don't have a regular job I have to go to, but at the same time, I can have the luxury of traveling almost whenever I want to all these conferences, vacations, whatever you want, to do, or I can volunteer my time at schools or with DECA, the national competition, and I can give my expertise to somebody else to try to help them, guide them along that same path. That's a milestone for me, because I don't truly feel successful unless you're able to send the ladder back down, if you will, and help somebody else. It's more than just about your own success.
Talk about Last for the Troops for a second.
Yep. So Last for the
How'd
Troops,
you get involved with that?
Yeah, so when I was on a cruise ship vacation, I want to say it was around 2014, if I got that right. I have to check the dates, but I went to a comedy show and that they had, and saw the comedian, and I noticed at the end of the show he says, hey, I run this organization called Laugh for the Troops. We're just getting it off the ground, and we help injured soldiers and with those suffering from PTSD with through some of their troubles, and we try to raise money for them. And the military causes have always been close to me, because I feel they give a lot and we owe them a lot in return. So I approached him, after the cruise is over, and I said, hey, tell me more about this organization. I want to get involved. Here's some more about me. Became really good friends with the head of that organization, and ended up traveling to several events throughout the country, both in like in Colorado and Florida, doing some charity fundraisers. And obviously it's a volunteer work for me. It's giving some time, but the satisfaction that you get when you see people benefiting from your hard work is you can't even describe. When I went to the event in Colorado, for example, I stood outside my hotel room, and I still remember this to this day. They had a climbing wall that they had set up right outside the hotels for the Winter Olympics that they were hosting there. For that group of people, and this guy was wheelchair bound and had one leg, and he was able to do this climbing wall by himself.
Wow! And
I have a video of it somewhere. I have to dig it up, but to watch that, right, and to think, wow, we think we have problems as regular humans. If this guy can do that, defying all odds, it just gives you another sense of motivation.
Totally.
Whether you're in with your business,
puts things in perspective, right?
Sure, for sure.
Well, if you find that video, I'll clip it onto the end of this.
Yeah, I can.
Do you have it somewhere?
I do. Yeah, I gotta find it. I don't know if it's on my phone or my computer, but I do have it. Yeah.
Well, we'll want to preserve it, so send it, and we'll clip it on the end of this, and that will be really cool. So thanks for sharing that. By the way, I love hearing those stories, and the ultimate reason why you do this is also because you want to perpetuate, and you give your expertise away. I've seen it in many, many instances with you, and to the next generation too. What's the best idea you've heard at one of these DECA competitions?
So last year I was at the Collegiate DECA competition in Anaheim, and this guy who he wasn't a regular college student, because Collegiate DECA can be anyone from any age group, anyone who's in college, right? So it can be a little bit older. And he had come out with some kind of, basically a system where when you're shopping for clothes online, what's the biggest thing that you have an issue with, right? It's sizing, and you don't know how it's going to fit, right? Basically, this would design a system to where your measurements and your overall shape, right, would the vendor or the person, the store you're buying it from, knew exactly what kind of size you were, and without even you having to try it on. It's hard to explain.
It's some kind of AI technology or something.
Like you could order the products, it would know what your size were, and it was almost like a guaranteed fit, if you will. And the success rate that they were targeting was like 95+%. It was crazy. So obviously it didn't reduce the fact that you might not like how it felt, because that's obviously a little bit more difficult, but it really limited the size issue. Instead of saying, hey, are you small, medium, large, extra large, or whatever, it was more customized to you as a person. So, you get your measurements, and then all the stores would know exactly how their specific line or their specific product would fit you. And it was almost like eliminated the returns process, because one of the biggest issues with clothing retailers is the cost for them is the returns aspect of people who didn't like the size, right? So that he figured, well, if I can eliminate that risk a little bit, and if I can save them even a fraction of what they're currently spending in return costs, it adds up to billions of dollars a year. So he's like, if I can perfect this software, this type of system, I can make a lot of money. And it was one of those things that, you were sitting there trying to judge him and critique him and fill out the form, and at the same time you're thinking, wow, that would be awesome. So.
Cool. Eddie, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out wholesaleBreakthrough.com, and hopefully I'll see you in Chicago.
Thanks so much.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.